Gaza, UN chief accuses Israel of orchestrated genocide. Philippe Lazzarini, head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has launched one of the sharpest condemnations yet of Israeli actions in Gaza, accusing the state of orchestrating the most cruel and Machiavellian scheme to kill Palestinians. Describing Gaza as the graveyard of children and starving people, Lazzarini warned the humanitarian catastrophe is spiraling out of control. On the ground, signs of widespread hunger and malnutrition are becoming tragically common. With Israeli bombardments continuing, aid groups say conditions in Gaza are unlivable. US-Canada tensions, Trump hikes tariffs to 35%. US President Donald Trump has announced a 35% import tariff on Canadian goods, despite Canada rescinding its digital services tax in a concession to US demands. The move is part of a wider pattern, as Trump sent tariff letters to several nations, warning of sweeping US trade levies effective August 1 unless deals are reached. These aggressive trade measures have fueled global concern that the US is turning inward and using economic might to unilaterally enforce its foreign policy. US-Russia, high-level talks on Ukraine continue. In Malaysia, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov met again for a second day of direct talks. Ukraine remained the central focus, alongside discussions on Iran and Syria. Russia described the meeting as a substantive and frank exchange, though no major announcements followed. Trump, meanwhile, continues to promise that if re-elected, he would end the Ukraine war within 24 hours. His position is both criticized and supported in US and international circles. African diplomacy undermined, Trump's controversial summit moment. During a three-day mini-summit at the White House with leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal, Trump appeared to publicly humiliate his guests. The diplomatic slight reportedly wasn't part of the plan, and US aides scrambled to manage damage control. The moment, captured on live television, raised eyebrows in African diplomatic circles and sparked backlash across social media and editorial pages. PKK begins disarmament ceremony in Iraq. The PKK, Kurdistan Workers' Party, has taken its first steps toward full disarmament. At a small, high-security event in Iraq's Sulaymaniyah, 20 to 30 fighters destroyed their weapons. The symbolic act represents a turning point in the four-decade conflict with Turkey, which has cost over 40,000 lives. The process is expected to unfold gradually over the summer. Trump targets Brazil with 50% tariff, cites Bolsonaro trial. A dramatic escalation of trade tensions, Trump announced a 50% tariff on all Brazilian exports effective August 1. In a social media post, he linked the decision to Brazil's Supreme Court rulings against US tech companies and the ongoing trial of Jair Bolsonaro, whom Trump called the target of a political witch hunt. Critics warn this is a dangerous fusion of foreign policy and ideological loyalty, undermining Brazil's sovereignty and escalating US-Latin America tensions. UN rapporteur Francesca Albanese accuses US of silencing. UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese said that sanctions imposed on her by the Trump administration were aimed at silencing her for exposing genocide in Gaza. She encouraged the global community to stand united, denounce, and push back. Her work has drawn significant attention for documenting war crimes and calling out corporations profiting from conflict. Syria wildfires, lives and history lost. In Syria's coastal Latakia province, 80-year-old Abu Jamil Muhammad watched his olive trees and memories go up in flames as wildfire ripped through the region. His daughter perished in the blaze. The fires are the latest in a series of disasters following years of war, sanctions, and economic collapse in the country. UN, Trump's foreign aid cuts could fuel HIV/AIDS surge. The UN has warned that US cuts to the president's emergency plan for AIDS relief, PEPFAR, could reverse decades of progress. Its annual report projects up to 6 million new HIV infections and 4 million deaths by 2029 if funding isn't restored. Liberia, Trump sparks uproar over remarks to President Boakai. At a press conference, Trump praised Liberian President Joseph Boakai's beautiful English, prompting outrage in Liberia and accusations of racial condescension. "Such good English," Trump remarked, visibly surprised. The moment went viral, triggering backlash from Liberian media and diaspora communities. Balochistan, 9 bus passengers killed in militant attack. Pakistan's restive Balochistan province, 9 passengers were pulled from buses and executed by gunmen. No group has claimed responsibility, though separatist Baloch fighters have been active in the region for years. Bangladesh, rapper joins protest against Hasina crackdown. Bangladeshi rapper Shezin released a song titled Kota Ko, Speak Up, during a deadly crackdown on student protesters last July. The song, now a symbol of defiance, questions the state's repressive tactics amid Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's authoritarian turn. Brazil, protesters burned Trump effigy over tariffs. In response to Trump's tariff threats, demonstrators in Brazil burned an effigy of the U.S. president. The protest, sparked by U.S. interference in Brazilian politics, underscores growing anti-American sentiment in Latin America. Argentina, former president faces corruption trial. Alberto Fernandez will stand trial over alleged corrupt insurance deals during his presidency. Argentine judge Sebastian Casanello formally charged him, and the trial could further polarize Argentina's already fractured political landscape. Russia-Poland diplomatic fallout escalates. Russia has closed Poland's consulate in Kaliningrad in retaliation for the shuttering of Russia's mission in Krakow. The tit-for-tat move marks another low in EU-Russia relations amid tensions over Ukraine and NATO expansion. Bosnia, 8,000 dead, but only 54 convicted for Srebrenica genocide. The report highlights the shocking disparity between those killed in the 1995 Srebrenica massacre and those held accountable. Out of thousands involved in the genocide, only 54 have been convicted. Calls for justice are rising again ahead of the anniversary. Greece, crackdown on unauthorized migrants. Greece has suspended asylum applications for arrivals by sea for 3 months and vowed to arrest unauthorized migrants entering from North Africa. The move follows a spike in arrivals on the island of Crete and reflects hardening European migration policies. Rohingya crisis deepens in Bangladesh. UN warns that the situation for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh could deteriorate rapidly without fresh funding. Hundreds of thousands who fled Myanmar face increasing hardship as humanitarian resources dwindle. Trump, disappointed in Russia, teases big announcement. President Trump has said he's disappointed in Russia and will issue a major statement on Monday. He also claimed a deal has been reached with NATO allies and Ukraine on new weapons shipments, though details remain scarce. Israel eyes uranium recovery from bombed Iranian sites. Israeli official says Iran may attempt to recover enriched uranium buried at facilities targeted in last month's U.S. strikes. Israeli intelligence warned that any attempt to access the material could trigger new military responses. Iran, Qatar air base strike damages U.S. facility. Satellite imagery shows Iran's strike on Al Udeid air base in Qatar hit a geodesic dome likely used for U.S. secure communications. The strike was a direct response to the U.S. bombing of nuclear sites in Tehran and preceded a U.S.-brokered ceasefire ending a 12-day war. U.S.-China leadership summit likely after Rubio-Wang meeting. Following a high-level meeting in Malaysia between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, both sides signaled readiness for a leadership summit. Discussions were described as constructive, with mutual agreement to expand cooperation. Pakistan FM, India can't digest defeat. Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar said India's political leadership is struggling to accept defeat after recent diplomatic and military setbacks. The remarks came during a national broadcast and reflect growing verbal confrontations in South Asia.